packed house tonight for this one. This was great. Bobby Manning's the only one who watched the fourth quarter. The rest of us were, as we determined, Josue was doing laundry, or was Jimmy doing laundry?
Oh, was Josue?
Jimmy was doing duty.
Jimmy's doing dishes. Josue's doing laundry. Sherrod and I were just BSing, sitting here in the waiting room, and Bobby was texting us about Marcus Smart and the spirited comeback. So,
yeah, that's
the defensive rotations with Fournier.
You guys, I love how
I love how the Celtics go on those spirited runs in the fourth quarter, but our Casper the Friendly goes quarters 1, 2, and 3.
I know.
We see it every time, though, right? Like we know how this story ends. Yeah. At least this time we got a nice show from Luka. That was a little fun to watch.
No, it wasn't. Luka does that all the time. Show me something new.
His old hat. We got the Brunson show.
I'm setting one ground rule for tonight. We can't talk about anything from the fourth quarter because it doesn't freaking matter. Okay, tossing it out.
We got to talk about Robert Williams.
So how you gonna say that if you didn't watch?
I guess Bobby's off the show.
Of course, I watched Bobby. This is theater. Okay, we're putting on a show.
Are we just gonna put an X in front of Bobby for the rest of the show since we're not gonna talk about it?
Of course, we watched.
I have so much to say about the fourth quarter.
Yo, Bobby,
we know.
Back up too. You know he's stoked about this. He wants to talk.
Want to share the screen, John? I got a list.
Okay, let's go. We'll do this classic journalism school pyramid style. We'll start at the end. Okay, Bobby, go.
That small ball lineup to end the game. You're gonna see it. You're gonna see it again. Now, this was a game. This was a game where I am gonna throw some shade at Brad because when I saw the starting lineup tonight, and I saw that Moe Wagner. You're going to like this. Yeah, Brad completely butchered the first half of this game. Moe Wagner getting serious run, going large, trying to chase Dallas into their bigger lineup start the stretch of this one. It was a disaster because the Celtics didn't have the personnel to do it. Luke Kornet was awful.
This was an obvious no big game, right? They should have gone. Obviously should not have gone bigs here and started Fournier.
Yeah. So, and I even would have gone Grant. Grant only played 9 minutes in this one. You thought you'd see some small ball five with him. And instead, it took them all the way until midway through the fourth quarter to really go small, put Tatum at center. And that was their best defensive lineup of the night. You didn't even see Porzingis. They were stripping balls left and right, pushing out in transition. And of course, some of that had to do with energy, ramping it up, going way down, and having to push back like that. But you saw things from Fournier within the flow of that defense that were really good. Tatum looked comfortable in that lineup. There was a ton of length on the floor. Kemba was in all the right places. I think that's something that this team could carry forward into the future and really use to take advantage of opponents who can't match up with all those wings, all that length. I mean, it looked like the Hayward, best five lineup from last year.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That's a stretch.
I love what Evan Fournier has been able to bring in the first couple of games. His first game, he just sucked. Wasn't making shots, and I get that. To me, it looked like he was thinking way too much and not just playing the game. Tonight, he was much, much better, but he's not Gordon Hayward. Not even close. And I don't think he's going to have – though. He will have a similar role, in which, to me, to your point, Bobby, where I think we're both on the same page, I would have liked to have seen him on the floor with Tatum and Brown and Kemba from the jump to see how those four guys could play from the very beginning. Because the thing about this Dallas team, remember, they, in many ways, they're like the Western Conference equivalent to the Celtics. They're in the seventh spot. They haven't had the kind of success that a lot of people have thought they would. They're starting to show some signs of being a pretty good team as they get healthier. The Celtics, not so much. I thought this was one of those games that the Celtics really needed from a psychological standpoint to win. And to get down by, what was it, 23-25? I stopped keeping track of how big the ditch was that they dug for themselves at halftime. They need to just be better, and Brad needs to do his job better. I thought this was an example where Brad was overthinking the process. Going with Moe and now that you didn't have your main guy, Robert Williams in the middle, so you just go with the next center on your roster. No, you be creative. You go with the lineup that probably you're going to wind up with down the stretching games, which would include Fournier on the floor with Smart, Brown, and Tatum. And Brad, I guess, I thought he overthought this way too much from the jump. A big factor in him getting in that huge deficit. And as we all saw, it was that small ball lineup that kind of got them back into this.
Yeah, I was shocked. I'm with you, Sherrod. I agree with you because I thought that Fournier, regardless of what happened in the first game, which, by the way, if he doesn't go for an 0 for 10, if he hit at least 2 of those shots, I think maybe Brad Stevens make that decision. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he was a little delicate with it. Maybe he was overthinking it. Well, he definitely was overthinking it because I didn't think Wagner was the move. But when you think about just having that threat, that outside threat, while guys like Jaylen and Tatum, and look at Tatum to start, right? He wanted every bit of Doncic, and I thought that was a perfect opportunity to draw in those double team and give Evan some touches out there. Now, I don't want to see the Celtics go out there and just draw a play for Evan. Obviously, he has to get his feet wet here, but I'm really surprised that he wasn't in that starting lineup. That's the only thing I can think of. That the biggest reason was just because of that huge offer he had. Brad wanted his confidence to be, somewhere else off the bench, made it a little easier for him. But I'm with you, Sherrod. I think he overthought that. I think you put him in that lineup with those starters and let him get comfortable. He's a big boy. He's a veteran. He's not a second or third year guy. I was surprised.
Yeah. So not to simplify it to the point of just why am I even talking, but I mean the field goal percentage tonight from 3-point range. I mean these guys missed wide open shot,
Brick City,
wide open shot. It was actually comical at one point. I mean they were even when they would do the right thing and actually drive on the rare occasion they would drive and kick it back out, they would still miss it. I mean, what was it, 11? No. What did they end up with percentage-wise?
They missed 30 of their first 38.
23% from 3, 11 for 47 from 3. I mean, you can go down the line. Just every single player on the Celtics tonight was so cold from deep. 2 of 9 for Walker, 4 of 11 for Brown, 1 of 8 for Tatum, 2 of 7 for Smart. I mean, these guys were just – and the thing that bothered me most is, listen, everyone has – horrible shooting nights, and the Celtics certainly do. But even when they were cold as ice, they still didn't want to drive. They still didn't want to attack the rim. When Tatum did, it was good results. He'd get to, he'd get to the hoop, he'd score, he'd dunk. I mean, you wouldn't know it based on, his reactions after. He's still complaining because he doesn't get the foul calls. Yeah.
Well, this is what drives me crazy about this team too. You see the power of transition, and I know you have to get stops to get out in transition, which is the biggest problem with this team. But when they get out on the run, Brown's a different player. Tatum's a different. I mean, it's simple. When you're running fast breaks, everybody's going to score more, be more efficient. Yeah. And they need to do that way more as a team.
This is the dilemma with this team, though, because the computer says
shoot the result
threes.
Right.
But so like right now, if you actually looked at them and like put it through your little, basketball, what wins basketball games computer nowadays, it would tell you Celtics are not shooting enough threes. So what have they done? Clearly a conscious effort to jack more threes. You see Jaylen doing it. You see them shooting them early in the clock. Right now, they've clearly been told, first good look you get from 3, just take it. Don't work the ball around. Don't dribble a ton. Don't end up taking that contested 2 that you're ultimately going to settle for late in the clock. Just let it fly. The problem is they're not really great at it. And so that's where you are.
I mean, that's part of the problem. But the bigger problem to me is the fact that they're not having that ball touch the paint and then take threes, because those are the best threes out there. The ones where you get the ball in the paint, suck the defense in, or at least shift the defense to where they have to respond to the ball being close to the rim, and then you kick it out for wide open threes. You look at the Mavs tonight, Doncic was killing them from 3-point range, but when he wasn't killing them, his teammates were, because he was dribble drive penetrating, sucking that defense in, forcing switches, kicking it out to wide open teammates who are knocking out in rhythm 3-pointers. That's the problem with the Celtics. Yes, they do need to take more threes, but they need to take more in rhythm threes, and that is all predicated on the ability to get paint touches, not necessarily paint shots, but paint touches, so that the defense has to move a little bit and force them to be more reactive than proactive, which is what we're seeing now, which is why they kind of suck night in, night out from 3-point range.
Well, the biggest reason to that is because of the defense, Rod. I mean, look, you look at the defense when the defense allow someone to score damn near 25 points in the first half. Like, that's a humongous blow for the Celtics. And it's like they build themselves they dig themselves into this hole, and then they have a hard time coming out. It was the same story we've seen so many times. I'm texting these guys and listen, this is the same story. They're going to make it really interesting at the end, and then they're going to run out of time because that margin of error, you just can't do that against a team like the Mavs, or at least against Doncic and the Mavericks. They were outmatched. But at the end of the day, those 3-point shots, that emphasis, when the shots aren't falling, that's when they need the defense to that's when the defense needs to capitalize on turnovers. That's when the fast break gets going. When the defense is not doing that, this team is in big trouble, because when those shots aren't falling, and a lot of them are open too. That's the part too that's tough to watch, the stomach. because of a lot of those open shots. But again, I mean, if the defense isn't there, that's how they fall behind, and that's how they end up trying to get themselves out of that hole in the second half.
47 freaking threes, man.
It was bad. I mean, like I said,
That's
it was
gonna be the norm
literally
now. That's
47 threes they launched.
laughing at
That's
how
ridiculous.
many threes they were missing. I mean, you couldn't do anything but just laugh. I think it was that bad tonight from three. And
That's why
it's amazing
tough.
that they even had this comeback in them. You know, the way that they were shooting. I mean, they got hot for like 2 minutes from
But that's
three.
like 2 days ago, Jimmy. It's the same issue. We're having the same conversation. Like, they had a nice win, but it's like, yeah, they made a lot of their threes tonight,
Yeah,
you know? And it's like they're so reliant on it. And when they go cold, there's nothing.
Well, I mean,
there.
what are you gonna do? Force it inside the Moe Wagner? It's personnel. We keep talking about it. The personnel.
Who are they
of this
missing?
team.
I can't think of it. Who was missing tonight?
Oh boy!
Oh, you're not gonna.
can't
You're not
believe
gonna.
we're
Get,
going this line.
I remember.
This would have been a perfect game for him, guys. Come on, let's keep it 100. This would
No,
have
This
been
yeah,
just
for
goes to
sure.
show.
You're not gonna
Goes
get
to
me to
show.
say Moe Wagner's preferable to Rob.
But you're thinking about it.
No,
Yeah.
I can't stand Wagner.
Kornet,
I think he
maybe
stinks.
Kornet.
He's
Kornet?
the whole fourth
We'll
quarter with
think
a
about
protractor, you know?
Kornet in 2 weeks. Watch.
Kornet had another decent game here. Now,
No.
I just don't like
Don't
these.
do it, Bobby. Don't do
Just
it.
don't.
I don't
Find
like
another
the
hill to
Wagner.
die on.
I don't like the Wagner thing inside. Now, pull-up jumpers, that's how this team's going to get by. They struggle to finish. They struggle to get the ball in the paint touches, all that stuff you talk about. And they are a pretty good three-point shooting team this year. The top 8, the volume's not there, so that's why you're trying to see them push in this other direction. What I don't like is that they don't stop the three on the other end. Going into halftime, it was 56% Dallas, 16% Boston. And they had to overcome that by launching a lot more in the second half. They just built such a hole, such a deficit from three that they had to try to dig their way out of it from that perspective. The thing is, you differentiate the good quality threes within the flow of the offense versus the pull-up ones. But I didn't like down the stretch where pull-ups in transition, especially.
I like this nickname. We'll go with No Wagner. Okay.
What does he do besides foul?
Well, all I know is his very first game with the Celtics, he hit a three-pointer from the same spot that our good friend Daniel Tice did not hit.
That's true.
From. And frankly, that may very well be the highlight of his time as a Celtic, which is sad.
Or tonight, we haven't even talked about it. The play, which absolves Marcus Smart in less than 48 hours for his stupid half-court thing. That friggin' that save under the basket was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. Like, that's what you're like. The kid on your 8-year-old son's pickup team does, and you're like, oh, the poor guy just doesn't know better. Bless his heart for trying. But he's a professional friggin' basketball player, saving the ball under his own basket and just dishing it to an opponent for a layup was the worst thing I've ever seen.
Really bad play.
It's as bad a play as I've ever seen a professional basketball player make. Like, he tried to do that, you know.
So they're gonna do an all.
It was so bad.
Like,
it was
you got
so
two
bad
already.
you couldn't even criticize him for it. Like, his
No,
teammates
you're just like, oh, you
teammates
bless your
were
heart.
just like, yeah, inbound it. You just, let's go. Like, let's just
go.
I don't even think someone helped him
Let's
up.
forget about this.
Move on. Let's keep
Get up
going.
there.
Get up.
Yeah, that one frustrated me. And Kemba just standing at half court when Brown was thrown into the back. That might have been the same exact play or the one before it, because in that third quarter, they just started throwing balls away like crazy and letting Dallas get out on those transition runs. It's like between fouling, between turnovers, the Celtics just cut their legs out from under themselves more than they already would be with the lack of penetration and passing and all the things we talk about. They turn the ball over a ton. They foul a ton. Like, they just make it so hard on themselves.
Well, I keep coming back to when I watched them play, just the lack of just fire defensively. I mean, I'm not expecting them to get a bunch of stops or force turnovers, anything like that. The effort just doesn't seem to be there. I mean, Brunson, I mean, he could have scored 40 points tonight if they really went to him. And the one thing they kept doing, and the Celtics, they still haven't figured out how to fix this, and I don't know how to fix it, is when teams are looking to create switches with the pick and roll, they're going to keep doing that until they get that matchup with Kemba. I thought there were multiple times in this game where there would be like a Tatum Brown switch, and then Dallas wouldn't attack that. They would figure out who the hell is Kemba guard, get his ass over here. That's the switch we want. And the Celtics, they've got to be able to fight through that. They can't allow those switches to happen as easily as they do because what those teams are thinking. Yeah. They're going to do the same thing that you – I mean, it's like if we're playing basketball and I see Jimmy way over in the corner, I'm going to do everything I can to get that switch because I know I've got a serious size advantage over him. Wow. That's exactly what teams are doing.
That's one of those things. I mean, they made it to the Eastern Conference.
Hold on. Real quick, though. Sherrod, what was the worst one, though? What was the worst one? When Tatum got caught.
I'm stealing that, just so you know. I'm going right around you.
When Tatum got caught in no man's land, he was trying to get back on the switch. That killed him. Finney Smith, wide open. He was 2 steps too late. And I think that was a humongous swing. I mean, the Celtics, right there was a one-possession game. You get a defensive stop. It could have changed things, honestly. I think that was a really crucial really crucial play for the Mavericks down the stretch where Tatum got caught in no man's land on that switch and left Finney Smith wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
particularly if you're gonna have guys like Fournier tonight, who I thought was so great defensively and smart, who's still.
I lost Bobby.
Did Bobby
I thought it was me. Word. All right, cool.
Josue is the happiest man in the building right now.
I'm here.
It's not my Wi-Fi, y'all.
Bobby,
you're next,
Brockton, Bobby. Yo, is Bobby in Brockton? All right,
I'm leaving him there. No,
yeah,
but
just like that.
You know what else I got? This better to do this one without Bobby because it's going to kill him. Last 2 games, I've had some serious. If you're a Celtics fan, you've had to have some serious FOMO these last 2 games, watching both Zion and Luka.
Ooh,
you know, right? Because
I mean, you're John. It's good Bobby's not on this segment. He almost had a conniption on Monday night when we even brought up the idea that you might rather have Zion and Ingram over Tatum and Brown. He almost got up and left the show.
But when you enter Luka's name into that equation, like again, this is the thing. It's like, you know, like
you were changing his mind. I thought he was starting to turn. I thought you turned
Luka. I mean, Luka's a star.
Yeah.
And Tatum's a scorer, you know, and you see that discrepancy in these games where there's a difference in level there. And it just, you watch it and you're like, I want some of that, you know?
Yeah. I feel Luka like at 21 led the best offense ever statistically in NBA history. I mean, you just can't argue against that.
Yeah. And it's just, you watch it and you're like, wow, you know, like, and the amazing thing
who's he playing with? He's got Finney Smith and Hardaway. Like, he doesn't have great teammates around him either, and they still put up points at will.
He's unreal.
I mean, that's the difference, and I feel like since last year, we're seeing that difference, and the gap. Just we're thinking at least the last time he was in Boston, right? Remember early last season, 2019, 2020. I think it was like a month into it, and we're like, okay, yeah, Tatum's gonna, you know, he's got some ways to go. But then that leap happened, right? The superstar leap, the 6 weeks of brilliance. It seemed like from before the All-Star break, after the All-Star break, up until the pandemic, up until the shutdown, where Tatum was just lighting everybody up. We've seen glimpses of that Tatum in the last week or so, but it hasn't been consistent all season long. You know, it's like he's almost still where he was last season. And we're seeing flashes that he can make another stride this season, but he hasn't done it yet. We haven't seen it yet. We only seen glimpses of that Tatum we saw last year, that All-Star Tatum we saw.
Well, I think we're you're right, Josue. I mean, we're seeing glimpses of it, but I think we're seeing, frankly, he's not doing what I think all the great players do, and Bobby kind of touched on this a little bit, and that's make the guys around you better,
your teammates better.
Yeah, right. I mean, Brunson is not going to drop 7 for 8 or 7, whatever he shot from the field, if Luka doesn't have the kind of dominant game that he has. Tatum has yet to get to that point where he's having pretty good games, but then you see a guy like Peyton Pritchard go off for like 17, 18 points, or Grant Williams gets you 16 or 17, in large part predicated on what Tatum's able to do. That's not happening. And because Tatum is so young, I'm not freaked out about whether it's going to happen or not, because he's still doing more in terms of impacting games than most guys that young in the NBA. When you look at, like, for example, when you look at scores 25 and under, you're looking at tandems with him and Jaylen. I think the only duo 25 and under that's scoring more points than them are Zion and Ingram, who both are all-star players, just like Tatum and Brown are. So I think he just needs time to figure this stuff out.
But we had this conversation before the season, Sherrod, in terms of like, okay, the Celtics getting to a next level. That leap was entirely that was entirely contingent upon Tatum and Brown each taking a leap and going from the 20-30 range of best players into, and again, an ESPN ranking had Tatum at 11, knocking on the door, into Tatum is a clear top 10 player and Brown's knocking on the door, and then Brown takes that huge leap at the beginning of the year, which, we don't know if it's a knee or it was just unsustainable shooting for so long. And now you look around and you could probably point to 10, 12, 13, 14 different tandems where you're like, I don't know. They're pretty close, if not maybe even better across the league. And then you look at the rest of the supporting cast and you're thinking, maybe the Celtics aren't as well positioned as we thought, because there's a lot of good duos out there all around the league right now. Tatum and Brown aren't the only game in town. And you see it kind of coming over and over again. So again, I don't know, poor Jimmy's struggling to get back in here. So hopefully we'll welcome him back. But that's kind of the thing is like every time Tatum is criticized, he's criticized because you're expecting him to be at a level he has not yet reached, which he may still reach. But until he gets there consistently, as a person who makes people around him better and does all of the different things and is, constant effort and night in, night out, making the right play, taking better shots, until he does that consistently, you're going to have these questions.
Yeah, well, and I think the problem is twofold. One, I don't think Tatum does a good enough job of positioning himself so that the guys around him can be impactful. And the other thing, and let's be real, the guys that he's playing with aren't that good for the most part. And that's why when Danny Ainge talks about how, this is on me, that's not just hyperbole. He's right. That's absolutely on him. I mean, no disrespect to Grant Williams, but he's a okay NBA player. But you're talking about top seven. When I say okay NBA player, I mean someone who's good enough to be on an NBA roster. That is what I'm talking about.
But what happened?
As my seventh or eighth man, that should not happen.
Grant Williams does not get a second NBA contract. That's my opinion. So I don't.
The extreme negativity with you. Oh my Lord.
I think right now
he's a rotation player in this league. He's not Tremont Waters.
No. Right now the smart
roster player. Bobby.
Right now the smart money is on him being out of the league in 2 years, as opposed to him being part of somebody's rotation. Mine is the much easier bet to make.
All right, we'll put that one in the dock and see what happens. That one's not worth an argument. But
he's a 10-day contract guy, or he's playing in friggin' Israel in a couple of years. Okay.
No, I don't think he's that bad. I think
not that good.
He's an active roster player.
I want to see a lot more of him tonight, honestly. Either way,
you're calling him Sully. Wow, that's messed up.
That's the biggest.
I go back to Danny. I put a lot of this on Danny, though. I just think he's got to get better players around those guys.
Particularly because if you're going to throw Brown and Tatum as facilitators into the fire and say, take this product that's not very good and, pull a LeBron and make Semi Ojeleye a great player and Grant, all the guys we mentioned, it was a tall task. Now, I think when they had a nice core short rotation in the playoffs last year where it was just always Brown and Tatum, and this is something to think about going into this postseason, I thought Tatum was a phenomenal facilitator in the playoffs, particularly for that being his first time. He had 5 assists a game. Turnovers were a little high, but he was getting it done enough to win. I did think he was a limiting factor a little bit because they didn't have too many options, especially when Hayward went down, to give it to other guys if he's getting doubled and blitzed and all that stuff. But for his first run, I thought it was great. Now you can't come out the next year and say, all right, here's even more responsibility and less talent around you, get it done again, to a guy who, wasn't an elite facilitator to begin with. I thought that was just such a massive mistake by Ainge. And luckily now Fournier's here. So I kind of look at this team and say, all right, Brown and Tatum, it's time to prove it a little bit more here because you do have a little more talent around you now in Fournier.
Not only more talent, Bobby, but I think they have better fits for them to grow. Like when I look at Tatum and Brown and just their ability to be facilitators, their ability to be scorers, they need at least one other legitimate go get your own shot today player. And Kemba, they can't rely on Kemba to be that guy because he can't play in back-to-backs. His minutes are creeping up there, but his impact, it's not quite what it was, certainly not what it was in Charlotte, and certainly not what it was when he first got here to Boston. So they need another guy who can be a difference maker, who guy can go get his own shot, and a guy who can help them, frankly, be a little bit bigger defensively. You don't see teams damn near,
that's
on their
why
knees
I waver
begging.
over the Gordon thing.
That you don't see teams begging and pleading, doing everything they can to get a particular matchup when Fournier is on the floor, because why are you trying to get a matchup with a 6'7" guy when Kemba's out there? It's like, well, we're trying to match up with a guy that's like maybe 6'1".
Yeah. We talk about the switching issue and especially when they're going to go small in the small lineup. Aaron Gordon would look pretty good in that rotation, especially making up for some of Kemba's deficiencies. And, I saw an astonishing stat, and he's looked really good with Denver so far. He's a top 15 player in the NBA in opposing field goal percentage against. So when a guy's going at him one-on-one, he's locked down, and he's a great switcher, great size like you talk about. I mean, we labored over that conversation again last show for like 30 minutes, and it's a hard one. Like, would you have given up Smart for that? I don't think it was
a hard one.
No, and he's a perfect fit for that Denver team.
We were saying, why in the world didn't we do it?
He's perfect for Denver because now Michael Porter Jr. doesn't have to give a damn about defense before Aaron Gordon got there, and now he really has a reason not to give a damn because he's never going to have to guard the best wing player. That's Aaron Gordon's job. For Denver, he is a perfect fit for what they want to do, and it pisses me off because he would have been an even better fit here because of what the Celtics need over the hump.
Felt like they needed 2 upgrades for sure.
I'm so mad I missed that whole segment on Tatum.
Hey, Timmy's back.
So mad.
And so mad that you weren't here.
As soon as Bobby came back, I lost all my audio. I couldn't hear a damn thing, so I had to figure
Don't worry.
out.
He said everything you would have said if you were here.
Only better.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
But Bobby and your takes
are right up.
Almost identical.
It was about you guys were about to talk. I know you don't have to rehash it, but it was about Luka, right? And just how he's on another level, essentially.
Yeah, we were there.
Were you in agreement with that?
Yeah. I mean, Luka, no question. The Zion thing was a good debate last time, and I think you can make a case there because of his style of play and how it's going to continue to translate, not being able to shoot threes. But he's still just on another planet right now in terms of efficiency, and I think his potential, and he's such a problem. You have to account for him all the time. There's almost no real answer there. But Luka's just on he's playing a different game.
So there are some people who think that Celtics, well, they're saying if they had the choice, would they trade Brown and Tatum for Luka? 2 guys for Luka. Both those 2 guys for Luka.
It might not make you better, but also, it's just
both sides probably say no to that one.
Or both sides probably say no.
Yeah.
Isn't that that's pretty crazy? It's pretty crazy the Mavericks would say no to that. But when you look
it's not. You see Luka? Did
you
see Luka out there tonight?
Oh, I know,
look
but
what the Celtics are doing right now.
I know, but I guess it's maybe crazy is not the right word. But I guess it's sad if you're a Celtics fan that a team would actually say no to that. They would say no to your 2 players that you think might be the best young tandem in the NBA for one guy who is an absolute stud. Don't get me wrong, but it's the way these 2 guys, Tatum and Brown, have played with each other this year. Even though they're both all-stars, it feels like they're both hurting each other's stock somehow because they don't seem to make each other better out there when they're playing together. Like, they don't play together. They just don't.
Can I ask one question?
No.
So, I know Bobby said earlier that, okay, no Rob, I'm not worried. And the margin for error for this team is 0 and they're missing a starter. And Rob Williams isn't even really a starter. He's been starting for 12 seconds. And Bob doesn't even want him to start.
He's a starter now.
I understand. The point being is, you're so mad about that. We are desperately running out of excuses with this team to the point that, this to me was one of the. I know you can look at the Knicks game and you can look at a bunch of different games where you're like, oh, what a gross performance. But those are you're going to lay a few eggs. Even great teams do that through the course of the season. This one, I don't know why, depressed me more than most. It was just flat. Lifeless, another just a dip against an okay team for no real reason to be losing to these guys after having lost another home game to a team that you didn't necessarily need to lose to either. You can't beat the 500 teams at home when you've got close to full personnel. Forget about it. Cash it in, we keep saying this, and I tweeted it earlier. I don't even know why we're wasting anger on this team anymore. If you accept the fact that they're not that good and there isn't a next level, and if they just did this or they just did that, you'll probably be a less angry person overall because why continue to get mad at them? I don't think it's in them to all of a sudden put it together, make a run, and get a deep conference run, possibly threatening to get to the conference finals. Who sees this in this team? Outside
Bobby,
of the guy in the bottom left.
Outside of one guy.
Anyone going to join me?
Who sees
Anyone going to join me on this hill?
Hey, John, do we still have the green teamer cam? Did we put that one up there? I thought we made that.
I don't know if I have it.
Can we at least say that the 4th seed is almost out the window entirely now? I don't know. Unless Bobby, what do you think?
No, it's not. And you know what? And it's not out of the question because it has less to do with Boston and everything to do with the mediocrity that exists in the Eastern Conference.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
I mean, they could literally just backdoor their way into getting home court in the first round, which, as we all know, doesn't mean squat because we've seen what they look like at home, and it's not pretty.
Let's tank it up a little bit, fall into the top 10, and draft a quarterback.
Too late.
See if we can fix this thing.
Way too late. Yeah. No, they had that chance, and they're not doing it.
I think there's some of us, like maybe John and I, who kind of saw a lot earlier than some other people in this room that the Celtics probably don't have what it takes to get to where they want to go, and that's why at the trade deadline we were screaming, "Don't panic,
don't bother,
don't do a panic trade and try to make yourself a contender because." Odds are you're not going to be as good as the Brooklyns and, whoever. Brooklyns and the Brooklyns, basically. And we said you're also probably not going to be good enough to get the buyout guys. Well, what happened? They weren't good enough to get the buyout guys. Brooklyn was. And, you got a player in Fournier. Who knows what the future holds for him here. But the point we were making early on was, listen, you're not good enough now to really, to go where you thought you could go to start this season. And I think a lot of people now, after the deadline, are probably saying the same thing. Like, listen, it just isn't happening this year. Play the young guys and see what you got, and go into the offseason with a plan to try to improve in another way. Yes, I did. Thank you.
I think you did.
No, I think I agree with John, and I think Josue to an extent. Bobby still thinks the Celtics can win the championship, so
he's hanging on.
By default,
I'll give you some.
It's got to the point where you just know in that first quarter what kind of energy they have. You're like, nope, it's not happening tonight. Yeah, they'll probably make it interesting, but we know when the Celtics have that game face, have that momentum.
We've seen this movie before.
I think Brad said it perfectly, and it's such a simple comment, but it made me laugh because it resonates so well with this team. He said it perfectly 2 nights ago when he said, or 3 nights ago, whatever it was. He goes, in order for defense to work, all 5 players, they have to play defense. And that's exactly what's been the case. Whether it's 4 out of 5 or half defense from 4 out of 5 guys or some sort of combination of that, it's nowhere near the.
But let's talk about it, though, because I sent you that stat earlier tonight, Josue. Sherrod, we shared a stat between all of us here that the top 5 offensive rating seasons of all time are all happening this year, okay? So what does that tell you? It tells you no one is playing defense because nobody can buy in to the type of philosophy that you need to play good night in, night out defense. So while the Celtics aren't doing it, no one else is really either, which is why I pay less attention to their defense because everyone's playing shitty defense right now. Offensive ratings are through the roof. The offensive numbers are through the roof. There's too many games back to back to back in a condensed schedule. Half the league has friggin' COVID and COVID lungs and conditioning concerns. It's just it's not the type of season where you can be out there slapping the floor and friggin' getting after it game after game. So right now,
unless you're the Jazz are doing it.
The Jazz are a top 5 offense team right now, and that's how they're winning games. So right now, you've got a broken offense with this team, and and that's why I keep coming back to that, Bobby. I'm pointing to that as the bigger issue than anything with the defensive effort and this and that. Like, it's not great, but again, this is in this league in this year, you've got to be running a better offense than the Celtics are running right now on a night in, night out basis.
Yeah, you gotta have some.
That's Steven's quote, but go ahead, Bob. I'll cue it up right now.
Well, you got to have some cohesion to do it too. And I don't want to play the injury card for this team because I don't think it's valid. I don't think it's the reason that they've been bad defensively. I think a lot of individuals within the offense have underperformed on that end. We've talked about Smart, Brown, Thompson, certainly, who just was not the defensive impact guy that they want to add. But I do see potential still on that end of the floor. Like, I see switchability. I see the ability to turn it up. And now that Rob's gotten involved, they've dug out of that bottom 3 spot and giving up baskets at the rim. So there still is an upside to this defense that makes me at least a little optimistic that this team can turn it around on that end. But there's got to be buy-in, and there does have to be consistent personnel. I think another thing that you didn't throw out there, John, is that pretty much everyone in Utah this year has had guys going in, out of the lineup, major injuries.
It's like I said, it's a my ball, your ball offense, and nobody in the league works harder for their buckets than them. I swear, it's either contested twos or whatever, rushed threes, and very little in the paint, not a lot at the free throw line. They
let it go. Yeah.
They work their asses off for their buckets. But Josue, what's your quote?
Brad Stevens asked, what are you most satisfied with? Brad Stevens, if anything, he's asked as a follow-up, if anything, Stevens says, yeah, if anything, there isn't anything.
Wow.
Nothing good to be taken out of this.
Yeah. I'm glad that he's keeping it 100.
Not satisfied with the same thing. Yeah.
Well, good for him. He shouldn't be.
Good.
I like it.
He's right.
Stevens impersonation by Josue.
The shucks Brad Stevens fourth quarter. I thought we did some things well there. That would have pissed me off tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is why I said. This is why I said at the beginning of the show, I'm not talking about the fourth quarter because I don't give a crap what happened in the fourth quarter because it has nothing to do with what's wrong with this team and nothing. Okay. Like I said, fool's gold. Fool's gold to look at that fourth quarter and extract anything of real value from it, okay? Mavs kind of stood around. They let the Celtics take it to them a little bit. Game got close. You knew they weren't going to win it. But, Sherrod, go ahead.
Well, to translate
the issue that the more I start just kind of going through all the malaise and nonsense that this team is putting us all through, folks haven't figured out what the hell their roles are. And the problem with that is that because you don't know what you're supposed to do, you don't know where to set your expectations. And if you don't know where to set your expectations, chances are you're not going to be very good. And when I look at Tatum, I look at Brown, they're elite offensive players. They need guys around them that I need to be an elite defender. Name one guy other than Marcus Smart who actually gives you the impression that they give a rat's ass about playing elite defense.
Okay, but who do you put that on?
I put that on the coach.
Of course.
Yeah. I absolutely put that on the coach. You need to tell Grant Williams, look, if you're open, you think about taking a three. That doesn't mean you take it. You think about it. But I need your ass to defend at a high level. I need you to rebound. I need you to be a great positional defender. I need you to be an elite help side defender. I need you to do that because that's what we need to be successful.
Right. It's like with Marcus Smart. After he takes his 10th shot, every time he goes to get into a shooting motion, you need a shot caller that literally stops him because it's like, no, you're limited. You're capped. 9 to 10 shots is the max I want out of you. And if you're shooting more, you're not doing your job. And we've been talking about this since the beginning of time about, late game execution. Who's getting the ball? What's the game plan here?
Who's running your offense?
Who's running your offense? Right. How do you had that game? Which game was it where the last 90 seconds, neither Tatum or Brown touched the ball? Like that's borderline fireable there. Like, how is it possible that your two best players didn't get a touch in the last 92 seconds of a close game? Can
you imagine a Lakers playing a game that's down to the wire where LeBron and Anthony Davis don't touch the ball for the last 90 seconds?
Unfathomable.
That would never happen. Or shit, you can even go across town and look at the Clippers. Kawhi and Paul George, one of them's going to touch that ball in the last 90 seconds of the game, regardless of the
and Brad's another guy. I said earlier in the show, now that they've upgraded, there's real expectations for Brown and Tatum. The same goes for Brad. They got to find some consistent units here, roles, as Sherrod talks about, and have something that's solid going into the playoffs. There's only 25 games left. There's not a lot of time left for experimentation, and Fournier is going to be integrated pretty fast. And so far on the offensive end, it hasn't gone well. I know it's only 2 games, but come on. I mean, he's not on the ball at all. This is a guy who is a spot-up shooter, ball in his hands, playmaker, and through 2 games, I've barely seen the ball in his hands at all. Like, how is that going to be an upgrade if he's just floating?
You mean he's starting to look a little bit like Gordon Hayward? I think you made that reference before, right?
Yeah.
What are they doing with him? What is, as one of our commenters said about this show, what is the point of this podcast? Okay, I will ask right now, what is the point of Evan Fournier if you're not going to utilize any of his skill set right now? I don't understand. I mean, he touched the ball like 6 times tonight. Like, I mean, what'd you get him for?
He's a free agent to be, just like Hayward. Like, if he gets dissatisfied with his role here, he's gone. You got to integrate this guy faster.
Also, what is the point of Aaron Nesmith? I guess you guys
drive you crazy.
I guess you said he played tonight. I missed
to raise
it.
your blood pressure.
Yeah, he missed the corner three again.
I saw that corner three he took, and as soon as it left his hands, I'm like the rest of the guys on the court. I'm headed back on defense because I knew it wasn't going in.
Let me share this.
So hold on, but real quick before we go into Neesmith Bash Hour, which is a tradition on the show.
Yeah,
you guys are just talking about roles and the fact that players might not know their roles and whose fault it is. I have a question about roles. Is it that players don't know their role, or is it that players don't like their role? And is it also that players are fighting for bigger roles? Because that's kind of what I see out there sometimes. And I know I've kind of hinted at the whole like Jayson Tatum versus Jaylen Brown thing, and how I don't think they necessarily make them each other better. I almost wonder sometimes if there's like a struggle for who's like the alpha on the team. Like it almost feels that way. It doesn't feel like they kind of go like, again, it doesn't feel like they're like teammates sometimes out there. It just feels like it's one player mode.
I think the Celtics are in a good position when you talk about the main entrees. For this team, that's Tatum and Brown. It's the side dishes. But that's the crappy part of this meal.
Yeah, but
the side dishes suck.
You know they're not intertwined. One's going. They're doing the same thing.
They're doing the same thing.
They're not intertwined.
Yeah, like it's not like they're almost too similar in ways. Like they're not helping each other.
No, they're just not
be better at what they're best at.
Yeah,
like that's just what I've been seeing recently. So that's what I think about when I hear about roles.
My ball, your ball, my ball, your ball, my ball, your ball.
Yeah, and then like
my shot, your shot.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. Like I don't get like the vibe
did that in the quarter.
They're happy when the shots are going in. They're like, "Hey, nice job, you hit a shot. Now can I shoot?" Like that's about the extent of the chemistry and teamwork.
I know you guys hate when I say this, but that's the only time they ever clap hands. Honestly, man, they barely talk to each other. But that's just me.
No, it's true. I mean, I see that too. And the other thing we're talking about defense. The thing about defense, and we all know this, and we've all said it, is so much of it is effort, and so much of it is like body language and morale, and like wanting to, get the stop, and for the team and get it going in the direction. I just don't see that. And Bobby, you've said on the show hundreds of times how talented they should be on defense and how their abilities to switch, and they should be a much better defensive team. The fact that they're not tells me that they're just not trying hard enough to be one. And maybe that's across the league, but when you're a team that's below 500, you have to put that extra effort in, because clearly you aren't good enough on the offensive end to cheat and to take plays off and to take halves off or 3/4 off and think you can just flip a switch in the fourth quarter and all of a sudden play a little bit of defense. It doesn't work that way. So, and we always see these little sound bites. Oh, like, this is, we need to get the energy up, or we need to get the attitude up in the room, and Fournier will be good for the locker room. It's like, why are we hearing all these things about this team just being a bunch of downers all the time? And when you watch the games, that's what you see out there. So there's so many like roles, effort. There's so many things that are leading to these types of games where they go down 20 points, 25 points, and then they'll claw their way back because it's the NBA.
Well, look,
of course you're going to go on runs, but that doesn't mean that like they lost this game in the first half today.
Well, here's my question again. So, I mean, taking it back to the Kyrie, like we don't know. I mean, Sherrod, maybe you have some insight here in terms of relationships and what's going on. Obviously, you've been covering the team closely for a decade plus now. We know they're not the same type of guy, the whole Tatum Brown thing, but we've never had any reason to believe there's anything other than mutual respect there. Whether or not they play well off each other on the court is a different issue altogether. But between those two guys and Smart and Kemba, which was very much the way he was, presented to everybody last year, was the anti-Kyrie. He's a happy dude. He takes accountability for everything he does. When things go well for him, he deflects praise to other people. When things go poorly, he takes responsibility himself. He said all the right things. He's exactly what you wanted. So you got rid of Kyrie, you got rid of the grumpy guys. Now you've got the kids in here. It's my team. We're happy. And what happens? Gordon hates it and leaves. And everybody's flipping out this year and saying there's something off and there's people dealing with stuff and blah, blah, blah. And it's just this mopey, grumpy team. So I hate to go back and say, was Kyrie right? But like, what are we missing here that's going on behind the scenes that keeps these guys from being able to get together and say, we're going to play hard every single night because that's what we do, because we respect ourselves and one another?
Straight no chaser accountability. They don't have it.
Yeah. So why though?
Why? Because the individuals that were leading that charge are nowhere to be found. And when you look at a guy like Al Horford, you look at a guy like Aaron Baines, you look at Kyrie Irving, you look at Gordon Hayward, you start looking at the guys that are no longer with the team. They were the face of their franchises at one point and held those around them accountable, and vice versa. Tatum, he sort of kind of, but really didn't come into his own until this year. And it just so happened to coincide with the same time that Jaylen Brown came into his own, where one can make a case that he should be the face of the franchise when you look at the kind of season he's had. And then you've got Kemba Walker, who, and again, I love Kemba. He is the type of teammate that you want to have. But when you talk about accountability, he's very good at holding himself accountable. I don't think he's very good at holding those around him accountable. I think that Kemba, he realizes what Tatum and Brown can do and respects them. And because of that respect, I don't think he holds their feet to the fire the way a 4 or 5-time All-Star should hold the feet of young guys on the rise. That's just not his personality. Yeah. And you start looking at this roster, this lineup, they don't have, for lack of a better word, they don't have that a-hole on the lineup. I was just
going to say that.
Who can absolutely, when I think about the teams I've covered, I think about the Kevin Garnett's of the world. Think about the Rasheed Wallace's of the world.
Marcus
James
is not that guy? Isn't that what he's supposed to be here? Isn't that what makes him untradeable?
Let him finish. Sherrod, go ahead. Don't listen to him.
No, John, that's a good point. Why isn't Marcus Smart doing more of that? I think
because they don't respect him that way. I don't think
exactly, Jimmy. That I think that they don't.
So what's the point of him then? Anyway, go ahead.
That's what
the point of any of this.
What we're gonna find. We're gonna find it out this summer when the Celtics are looking to make a major upgrade, and they're gonna look at and do an inventory of their roster. And I'm telling you, Kemba Walker or Marcus Smart, I do not anticipate being on this roster at the start of the 21-22 season.
Yeah,
at least one of them. At least one of them. So it could be both, but at least one of them will not be here.
So this is the thing. Everyone wants a bite at this apple, so go ahead. But I am curious about that because I am interested about the Kemba thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Kemba thing. No, I love what I love that you said that, Sherrod, because I was thinking the same thing after the All-Star break. It has to be Kemba. Kemba has all the experience. He has a bunch, a lot of years in Charlotte, a lot of trying years in Charlotte. And if I'm Kemba, I'm like, listen, guys, we can make this thing happen. Like this might be it. For me in the next 3 years, I don't know what's going to happen. This is my chance to take a swing at this. Last year was incredible. Sure, we didn't get the same atmosphere. The bubble was different, but screw it. I got into a deep playoff run, and I was one game away from the NBA Finals. I need you guys to help me. I need – maybe I've had this thing wrong with the two young stars having the difficult conversation. Because think about it. He's the only one that people could really – they'll listen to that.
Kemba speaks, they will listen. Absolutely.
He has that respect in that locker room. I still believe that. I don't think that's ever changed. And I think he's the one person. Yeah, it should be Marcus, or it could be Marcus in a sense because he's the longest tenured Celtic. But again, I just think the experience, the accolades, all that, it's relevant. These guys watched Kemba Walker growing up. That's relevant. That age gap is relevant for sure.
I think the only person Sherrod said.
The Kemba thing is the respect factor with Kemba really isn't the question about whether or not you keep him next year. You keep him is basically because you're saying we're going backwards a little bit because we got to dump this contract. So we're basically going to pay you to take Kemba off the books for us, which is a massive a white flag for this team. And obviously when you talk about Bobby, you're talking about the importance of doing something at the trade deadline this year to not upset the balance between the Jays here so they don't get, whatever. Trading away Kemba Walker for literally nothing just to take a step backwards because you got to clear that money off your books is a massive step back, and that's not going to look great for the franchise either. They're in a really tough spot. Sherrod, you think that's something they're looking to do?
I think this is how I think the things are going to play out this summer. I think that there's going to be a significantly talented superstar who is going to want out of whatever city he's in. And the Celtics are going to say, look, we'll give you picks, we'll give you our 4 or 5-time All-Star, and we'll take this potential headache that you're about to deal with off your hands because we can use it.
Who is that headache?
I think a guy that I would keep an eye on is Karl Anthony.
Yeah.
I would keep to me, he looks like of all the big time superstar talents out there, if there's a guy that could use a change of scenery, who's ridiculously talented.
Timberwolf.
Right, who frankly is with an organization that has yet to figure out how to utilize his immense skill set properly and win games. It's Karl Anthony.
Here's the problem, though. They're gonna ask for Brown. Like any of those guys, they're gonna ask for Brown. So does it end up being a lateral move in the end to give up one of your stars and go with a different one? That's probably worse.
But Bobby, the one thing, the pushback I'll have with that is that, look, if he lets them know that he wants out, they're going to take whatever they feel is the best deal they can get. And if you're the Celtics, I can't believe
that's going to be the Celtics. It's not going to be Kemba and a bunch of picks in the 20s.
Unless he pulls the James Harden card and say, I want to go.
I said that about Beal. Yeah.
Beal's the only shot at that.
You really think these two, without high level, without a deep playoff run or appearance in the NBA Finals, you think these two they're gonna keep playing with each other for the next 2 seasons? Or I don't think so. Maybe one more year before one of them starts to ask for a trade, or one of them says, you know what, I could do things my own, or I could shine somewhere else and start a team on my own. I mean, it's happened so many times. This is the NBA we're talking about, you know?
Yeah. LA's calling for Tatum in another year or two if this doesn't get better.
Brown.
I don't think it'll be Tatum. Yeah, because this is Tatum's team. You know, Brown's always going to be the number 2 to him. So if someone gets frustrated in that sense, I don't see how it can be Tatum. Like it's all set up for him. Ball's in his hands.
It's not going to be Tatum.
I'm worried about Brown.
Jalen's going to be like, no, let me, please.
You're going to try to build around him, so you're going to try to do everything to make him happy, which could be a Jaylen for Beal, bring in his buddy here and see if that shakes things up a little bit. You know, but that's really, you're right. You're talking about lateral moves. I'm with you, Sherrod. I think you could find that superstar wants to get out of here, but the only way they get here is if they say Boston or nothing. Here's my list of teams, and there's 3 of them, you know, and then you're competing against a small pool. But ultimately, Kemba and a bunch of picks in the 20s is a real shit offer. I mean, right now, I've seen people theorize you might need to trade Kemba and a bunch of picks just to get rid of him. And get nothing of value in return, let alone an actual potential superstar player.
Gosh, I can't see them doing that.
John's hard.
Can't see them. Yeah, I can't see them just unloading him for crap.
We're giving up assets to do it. I mean, come on, we're not talking about.
Don did that months ago.
This isn't Blake Griffin 2.0.
But hold on,
that's the right name.
You're not. You're just trying to get free of that salary a year earlier than you can.
That's it. For what?
John's looking at this like it's Derrick Rose, you know, the Bulls Derrick Rose version.
Well, consider this. I read Sherrod's piece today. Sherrod has a very good article that you wrote on Bleacher Report, and you did give me some hope that the Celtics were going to be, you know, players in the offseason here. For a Beal, I think is the player that you mentioned in the article, which, you know, obviously we've mentioned a few times on here. Another article I read today from B-Rob, and he kind of went over the trade deadline moves and the ramifications of them. And one of the things he said was that the Celtics, if they want to, I mean, you almost have a Gordon Hayward remake situation here. If the Celtics want to keep Fournier, they're going to need to do something with a Kemba or a Smart, because they literally cannot have them all on the roster. So Danny Ainge, if his intention in trading Fournier was to keep him, then he's essentially telling you that, you know, somebody's going here. Yeah. Because you literally, under the salary cap rules, will not be able to keep them.
So you should have traded Smart then.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He might still have that intention in the offseason, or if it's Kemba or
I know.
My second point is this.
Otherwise, you would have Aaron Gordon to show for it. I don't know.
Right.
Celtics are crazy about that.
So, and the other thing I said to you guys was, man, if the trade, if the upgrade or whatever you want to call it is re-sign Fournier and dump Kemba or Smart, that's not going to sit well with a lot of Celtics fans. That's going to be.
It's not going to sit well with the NBA standings for Boston.
Right. That's going to be a tough. That's a tough exchange.
That's the thing, though. You're damned in both scenarios, Jimmy. We talked about this. If you re-sign everybody and go deep into the tax, you're going to be the most expensive 4 seed in NBA history. You know, it's the worst thing that you can do right now. And again, we keep saying the same thing: is overpay for the middle class. And right now, if it's Smart or if it's Fournier, and you got to dig deep into your pocket to retain these guys, you're paying top dollar for middle class talent, while already having 2 max superstars on your team. That's an absolute disaster in the NBA. You need younger players, rookie contracts, people performing well at that level, instead of doling out $20 million, $18 million that kind of also rans. You get cheaper players and live with whatever they give you. You're not signing Fourniers and Smarts when you have those kind of problems. But if you don't sign them, you have nothing. Your team is just worse. So you're really in a tough spot right now. You either sign them and live with a really expensive team that isn't a title contender, or let them go and be worse.
And then hear it from everyone saying, "How could you let them go from nothing?"
That's where he's in Danny's got to pull some magic he's got to whatever he's done in the past.
He needs a situation like Sherrod
trading for Tatum, all of those picks. This will be the greatest trick he ever pulled if he pulls them out of this one in the offseason, because they're in a really, really big jam without a lot of wiggle room and no assets to maneuver.
Right, and you mentioned lateral move and how, what's the point of anything? But what's the point of a lateral move? Well, listen, if it's a lateral move after a season of 500 or below basketball, it might not be a lateral move. It might look like a lateral move on paper, but you can't tell me that Karl Anthony Towns, for example, becomes available and, they want Jaylen Brown. You cannot tell me that that's not something that you seriously consider based on what you've seen, with the makeup of this team and with what Karl Anthony Towns is capable of. He's not just some center, some guy. I mean, this is a legitimate top big in the NBA, and you put him around a good organization with good players. You already saw what happened to one, former Minnesota Timberwolf when he was put in a better
don't
situation.
do that.
I'm just telling you.
Stop.
I'm not comparing the two players. I'm telling you what happens when you put a player in a different situation on another roster. Like, it doesn't always. You can't just always go based on stats. Say, lateral move. Why even make it?
I will put you in a headlock if we were in the same room right now, Jimmy.
It might be.
Towns
be a better
and Kornet.
Towns is led though. How is the situation not comparable?
The Wolves are in last place every year with Towns.
Disgruntled player, all-star player. A guy
Garnett took that team to the West Finals. I don't want to hear those.
Yeah, Towns didn't really take that team very far, man. Garnett, blood, sweat, and tears, literally.
Towns
is comparing the two players. I'm comparing the situations, but Towns is an extremely good player. I know he doesn't play in Boston, so Bobby might not like him, but if we're talking about you can't just hang up the phone when that player becomes available. You got to exhaust the possibilities.
Yeah, I'll pick up the phone and offer Rob 7 firsts, Smart,
always those 7 firsts. Bobby only has packages of 7. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. All of his first round picks, he's got a 7-pack. You
got to figure out a way here somehow to add a star, and maybe it won't be a Towns or a Beal. Maybe it just ends up being another quality starting player for someone other than Brown. Because the problem is right now, every single phone you pick up, forget Towns, forget Beal. When you call the Atlanta Hawks to ask for John Collins and his expiring deal, they go, "Oh, how about Brown?" I mean, that's their problem right now. Like, they could call up about Maxi Kleber, and the Mavericks would be like, "Could we get Brown?" Like, that's everyone wants Brown in these talks right now, and that's just such a hurdle that they're gonna have to get over. Like, it reminds me of when they were going after Kawhi and George and some of these guys. Everyone asking for Tatum and Brown. It's so hard for them to avoid that because they have it, and those teams have the leverage to ask for it.
Well, then you could have traded them. Now you can't because you're going laterally. Before, teams were asking for them, but what you were getting back was an MVP. So that was worth it. Then theoretically, you were. Now it's not, because what are you going to get? Another top 20 player? I mean, everything is lateral at this point if Brown is included in the talks. Unless you have a situation where the other team wants Brown to be their cornerstone and they're going to give you a player that is close to an equivalent talent plus assets, then you could view it as a lateral move on the court, but I'm going to build moving forward.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So that would be the only way, is if you did Brown for Towns and a couple first rounders. Interesting. Because those first rounders might be the key to me doing something more down the road, whether I flip them or I turn it into something. That's the only way it works. But otherwise, just sliding a player for a player, I don't see how they do it.
Yeah, I think that's how that works. Because I mean, let's face it, between the two,
and that case might have to be Tatum. But anyway.
Who's winning the trade here? If you're Celtics, you're like, hey, listen, those picks are gonna go a long way for us. So yeah, I think that would. But is that it, guys? Those are 2 options. I mean, right now,
the other option is
options, right? Well, no, I mean for star talent or close to star talent that may be available, asking for a trade during the offseason, like Bradley Beal, Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, obviously, no one predicted Kemba Walker that offseason when everyone expected him to get the bag from Charlotte, but of course that didn't happen. Is there another player in a similar situation where it may look like they're about to re-sign, but maybe they'll change their mind?
I don't know.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, they have a year left on their contract, excuse me. And they're saying,
Sherrod,
you know what, guys?
Sherrod looked into his crystal ball in the offseason. Sherrod, I mean, are there other names? You looked into your crystal ball and wrote about it?
For now, I mean.
Well, I mean, when you look into the crystal ball, I try to be like, I don't know, realistic about it. And again, the point that I made earlier, and I honestly, God, believe this is how it's going to play out if the Celtics are going to make this quantum leap sooner rather than later. They are going to have to get someone who is in a situation that they desperately want to get the hell out of. And there aren't a lot of guys like that. And Bradley Beal, I mean, all indications from him publicly and people I've spoken to close to him privately, he's cool with being in Washington. He has absolutely no problem finishing out his career with the Washington Wizards. Because, again, with them going out and getting Westbrook, that was a clear signal to him that this may not be the perfect marriage, but shit, they're trying to actually – they're trying. They're legitimately trying to make this
team better.
better.
You don't think that's going to get old? I don't know. I don't think he wanted out of town this season. He's like, listen, we'll give this a go. I had to give this a shot, right?
Something has to happen that triggers him to say, you know what? I can't deal with this crap anymore. I got to be out of this.
Maybe one more year with Westbrook.
I'm telling you, it's going to take something like that, something that's going to trigger him to want out. Now, Karl Anthony Towns, I think that, look, if the Timberwolves say, hey, we've got a couple of offers on the table and we're thinking, before they finish the sentence, he's like, let's do it. Let's go. Let me know where you need me to go. Because I do think he wants out of Minnesota. I really do.
Yeah.
And that's great news if you're the Celtics, because listen, you're looking for some sort of out or some sort of plan or some sort of, Hail Mary, superstar player that wants out, right? Because you're not going to get any of these guys and anybody hitting free agency you're already out on. You can't sign anybody. You don't have any cap space even remotely close. So your only plan is to trade for a star at this point or somebody like that.
Tank it up.
And we haven't mentioned Rob Williams, but listen, I've been saying this all season. The more he plays and the better he gets, the more of a tradable asset you have there. And at least that's somebody that if they're interested in one of these superstar players like a Cat or something, he might be a guy that you dangle out there.
We didn't again. My secret plan.
To go back to Jimmy's analogy earlier, they're looking at him and like, he may be Al Jefferson. I don't know. He may.
Like I said, my secret plan here is Jaylen's knees all of a sudden start getting more sore than we knew. Kemba needs a couple weeks off because also just a maintenance situation. That COVID thing really didn't sit well with Tatum, so maybe he needs a little break. And all of a sudden, just kind of take a couple weeks off and slip.
Grant Williams becomes your best player.
Yeah, and then play, and
then we stop doing the show.
Make it the Romeo, Neesmith, and Rob show. Let them showcase whatever it is the hell they do or can't do. Slip into Tankville, build up those guys' value, trade them all. Okay.
No. And I'm excited for Fournier to get more involved. Thompson to come back. The team
Are you
to get
excited?
Healthy,
Does that actually
themselves.
excite you? Like, do you get
after
up
watching Moe Wagner, I am thrilled to see Thompson play again.
This is what you get excited about, seeing Tristan Thompson rejoin
after a night of Wagner for sure.
You're not getting preseason vibes from all this? Like, doesn't that upset you a little bit? I got big preseason energy.
And yes, I am flipping the script on tanking. And my tanking philosophy, again, to point it out to everybody.
Tank for what? On the 14th pick again?
When you tank, when
we get another Romeo.
When the organization tanks by
they're not getting down to 3. I mean, this isn't tanking.
To be clear,
we don't see Romeo.
When the organization tanks by trading away players, the remaining players are like, that sucks. But when you just slowly start to peel out and talk to Tatum and say, are you all set with this year? And he's like, yup. That's a plan.
Why do you want another rookie?
I'd like to see a locker room conversation with Brad and Jaylen and Tatum and say, guys, what do you think? You want to call it quits here? And they say, yep. See you next year.
Does that
not happen?
What would that do?
You
just want to be right about Kemba. Like, Kemba has been dropping 20 points all year, and you're just waiting for his
you guys want to take the rest of this off? Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
No. Talk about the draft. The Celtics have drafted better in the 20s than they have at 14. So I'd be more than happy picking somewhere between 22 and 28 rather than going back into that situation right there. Who knows? After 10, they're not getting down below 10. They had a chance to unload talent. And
honestly, you can't get really. If you look at it, if you tanked like crazy, it's hard to get lower than 9. It's really hard.
The Magic Rockets, they are experts right now.
It's hard to get lower than 8 or 9, so you can't get too far. You can't.
Right.
But you can win.
It's not going to happen.
You can win the lottery.
No. I want to win round 1,
Cavs?
round 2, and get to the East Finals and make that run again, and then see what happens there.
I don't see why anyone on the planet would think that that's going to happen. Watching this team, we're really far into this season. Right.
That would be an amazing season. That would be the best coaching job Brad will have done since he's been with the Celtics. Yeah. If he can get them to the conference finals this year, hands down.
I would be stunned.
And then guess what? On this show, John will go, they couldn't get to the finals when they lose in the East Finals.
Well, hell, you get that far, you might as well go all the way.
Yeah, that's exactly what you said.
I'm just saying.
This is what happens when you take too long to get to continuity. You would say something like that.
Yeah.
Going on Twitter, seeing
Hey, Jaylen, Jason, what do you guys think? You guys want to – it's been a long year and a half with this pandemic. What do you think? You guys all set? Yep, we're all set.
What do you want to start watching the Red Sox?
No.
Never.
No.
Like I said,
bleep that out.
I did not watch a single inning last year in protest for Mookie.
Smart. I might not do that this year either.
They gotta earn it, okay? They gotta earn it.
Sure. Couple Jaylen Brown quotes that I'm seeing on Twitter.
He looks sad. Yeah.
Celtics basketball is about scrapping, getting after guys defensively 1 through 5. We haven't had that in the starting unit or off the bench. As a team, we haven't had it. And then I guess he got a bunch of questions like similar about the lack of their resolve, according to Jay King. And he said, I don't know what you guys want me to say, to be honest. And
there's that we thing again.
Lastly,
I don't want you to say anything. I just want you and the guys to play better. That's
there's
all I want.
we thing again. It's we.
Lastly,
we aren't playing hard. Like, what do you mean we? Like, aren't you part of we? Everyone is saying we. You could play back smart quotes last week and they said the same thing. We aren't doing it. Tatum, we have to.
Brown and Kemba. Brown and Kemba have been better about that.
Well, this is
we. Say I. Don't say we. We is passing blame.
The last one he said, and might be directed at John, is everyone wants to be pessimistic and pick everything apart. It doesn't help anything.
Oh.
But having your offense picked apart and your defense shredded does help.
Yeah, that gets picked apart.
That's like those college football coaches that chastise the reporters because they're critical. Like, what are you doing here asking tough questions? Aren't you supposed to be...
These are kids. Yeah, right.
You're a Celtics reporter. How dare you be negative?
It's like you do realize that if you didn't play bad, you wouldn't have to answer questions about why you played bad.
Right.
That's
not
how
making
this
it
stuff
up.
works.
That's how that works.
I mean, y'all gave up 70 points in the paint. I'm going to ask you, why the hell did you give up 70 points in the paint?
That's the thing.
And you keep doing it over and over and over again. Yeah.
It's all puppy dogs and sunshine when they're doing well. Like, you've got the most optimistic fan base and media around right now, which is like very, very quick to point out when things are going well. And taking teams that are maybe not finals caliber and putting them in the finals and always extending them by a round or two in terms of what you think their expectations are. People are pretty bullish on what this Celtics team can do. So if they're being critical and negative, that really means you're pretty close to rock bottom.
Yeah. Absolutely. True. This quote from Brad's kind of a tough one. When adversity hits, we nosedive. And so we've got to be better in that situation. It's not, to me, as much about the start, the end. It's about how are we going to play when it gets tough. So, nosedive. Ooh, you hate to see that.
Panic mode.
So again, when you have these quotes and you're talking about heart and you're talking about we, and again, we're talking about togetherness. These are always red flag sort of things. It's not pull ourselves up by you like to hear things like, we know we've got the guys in this locker room to pull it together, and we will do that. Like, I've got faith in my guys. We've got the best team. We're better than this. Let's go. It's a lot of we're not doing this. You're getting a lot of that, and that really is the looking around the room sort of stuff. Like, it's just folding under adversity, no fight, coming out flat, no one picking each other up. These are just terrible, terrible signs. This is the worst you could hope for.
These are all quotes that you don't want to hear after a game. Just like guys that are taking everybody out. Nobody taking like the blame. Everyone's just saying like, well, none of us are playing well, and we're folding under pressure. We're not playing, with this defensive intensity. It's like, what is that? What's going on in that locker room?
How much do you think
locker room one?
Yeah. How much do you think it's the good players? How much do you guys think it's the good players? Basically, this is coded language for the good players saying everyone else on this team sucks but us. Like, how much of it do you think is the good players? Like, there's 3 good players on this team and everyone else blows. And really, that's what they're saying when they say we.
I don't think there's much of that, John.
No?
Because the good players aren't good.
A little bit. Yeah.
The good players aren't playing good. I mean,
right.
When they go back, when they go back and they look at video from each game, they see all the dumb mistakes they made. I mean, can you imagine how Marcus Smart felt when they looked at the video of that jump ball turnover? My goodness. I mean, that's and when they go back and they see what Moe Wagner,
the Red Sox, man, the Red Sox thing.
I know, right? See, John's got me thinking Red Sox. I hate that.
He was so bad.
Moe Wagner or Mo Vaughn?
Yeah, which one?
No, Moe Wagner.
Bobby wasn't alive for Mo Vaughn, I don't think.
Right.
Yeah, that's not in my memory.
Mo Vaughn before, he was way before Ortiz.
Yeah, the best players on this team have not been great, and that's part of the problem. They haven't elevated their play to the point where others around them are coming up too. I mean, and again, completely different team, completely different player. But when you look at where Chris Paul winds up going, it seems everyone tends to get better in the regular season. And I qualify that because, as we know, postseason, Chris Paul is not your guy. Regular season, everyone seems to elevate their play. Tatum, Brown aren't there yet. The guys around them aren't good enough to get there on their own. And that, to me, is where the challenge comes in for Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens to get better players so that their best players can not just elevate themselves, but can elevate those around them.
That's the question. We talked a lot about, like, are you going to swap in the stars tonight? Are you going to make these, like, transformative changes at the top? I mean, they had the chance, it feels like, this year to get a better player in Gordon than Smart. And, like, again, it was a close call, but that's something you look at maybe in the offseason and say, oh, there might be nothing here. Could we have done something at the deadline? And that's what I warned about all along. The opportunities were at the deadline. I don't know if they're going to be there in the season for, the kind of stuff we tossed around tonight. Like, there's a lot of optimism in making some of those changes and,
I don't know,
ripping out the core of the team.
Yeah, I don't know, Bobby. I think after the offseason, they thought that they were in good shape. I mean, honestly, do you really think that they thought that they would have to part ways with Jeff Teague, Did you don't think that they expected Tristan Thompson to have a more significant role and have an immediate impact? I mean, I think right there they knew, okay, this is going to be tougher than we thought because they thought maybe, I don't think they looked at it as a home run, but they thought that those were 2 significant pickups that they could rely on, 2 weapons off the bench, along with the progressing Robert Williams, of course, Grant Williams. I mean, Grant Williams, he was almost in a different role last year. Like, he was one of the guys that I thought
was much better.
Not a huge leap in the second season, but a leap nonetheless, and he's that never happened, They got lucky with
small ball 5 versus playing the 4 with another big. Right.
That second unit is very, very thin, very thin.
All right. Well,
here's a quote from Brad. I don't know what the question was, but he said, this is from Tom Westerholm. That's probably our reputation to not respond for 10 to 12 minutes.
Woo. Yeah.
He ain't wrong.
Brad's playing the we game too.
Brad was angry tonight after the loss.
We aren't doing it. So yeah, I mean, we've said this
everyone's
before.
calling each other out.
This is such an easy, obvious thing to say for the people unaffiliated. Not that we're not coaches. Obviously, it's so easy to quarterback it from the sidelines and say, do this, do that. What I don't understand is, why do you keep doing the same thing? Like, why did Wagner start tonight? Because you're just used to playing a big, like, why aren't you trying like I said, I'm not saying it's the right thing, but Kemba to the bench. I'm not saying it's the right thing, just something else.
Why is Kemba always the problem with you?
It's not, Bobby. Bobby, you just got to listen, man. I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying, for lack of a better idea, do anything different, okay? Anything different that breaks you out of your rhythm, where you play your starters oftentimes with that too big lineup for 40 games, then you take Tatum out at the 6-minute mark, and then you bring him back in here, and then you play these guys. You're 2 games under 500. You've been doing the same stuff all year. There's no evolution. You're not adapting, and you're not changing the way you play. We were talking about the Ryan Bernardoni tweet today in response to Corrales' article saying, are we sure Rob should start because Rob isn't doing certain things with the first unit? And then the counter is, that's because you got to make those guys play different when Rob's on the floor, not Rob adapt to Tatum and Brown. You have a guy who brings a different element to the game, and he's rolling to the rim, so utilize that. Don't make him do things where you take him out of the ability to do anything that he does. Is the offense irreparably broken the way it's being allowed to run right now? And if so, do something different to force the issue. Change, evolve. Yeah. But it's the same stuff over and over. You're allowing everyone to do the same things, and it's not working. So do something. That's what's frustrating right now.
And starting Fournier would have been an easy one. That would have been an easy one, John, right?
So easy. Starting Fournier tonight was so easy, like it was such an easy. When it was Wagner, I think like 99% of people are like, what?
Yeah. I didn't even imagine that would be a option there. I was just like, what's going on?
So try something, mix something up. You're going to sit here in the post game if you're Brad and say, we're not this and we're not doing that. And we go through. If you have people on the court who have quit for 10 minutes at a time, yank all of them off the freaking court and then don't put them back in for the rest of the game. That's what coaches do. Okay, you guys are not trying and you're not going to get to play anymore. Okay, I'm taking your toys away. Like, that's it. But he doesn't do that. How do you allow your team to be out there and not play for 10 to 12 minute stretch and then admit it after the game? That makes no sense to me.
I think he did it a little bit against Oklahoma, though. Remember having the end of that first quarter? He benched Jaylen, he benched Tatum, and then that second unit got them back into it, right? Peyton Pritchard started knocking down a couple of shots. Grant Williams was playing great defense. He knocked down a 3 or 2. So he's done it in stretches. But yeah, I'm with you. I think he's gotta get the whip out. He's got to take his belt out. He's got to spank these all-stars a little bit. Slap them around. Old school style. You know what I mean? Take it back. Because at the end of the day, what's left? Like, what's the alternative? This team is below 500. There's 20 games left? It feels like that's nothing. That's going to fly by.
Or just adjust. Yeah. Like, if you really want to do the Wagner thing, get away from it after halftime.
You started the second half with him. You're down 19.
Yeah, did you get Sherrod? Oh, I'm getting flashbacks from that. No.
Come here, Josue.
Yep, let's be real. Brad's under fire the rest of the way. Like, he's got to
Marcus
Brown
11:29 p.m.
Listen,
what was the final straw?
3 games ago, they did exactly.
Starting Wagner did it.
Ainge did what I. Hey,
he didn't say what I think he said.
Ainge did what he needed to do. He made the move. He invested in this team, and now they have the personnel, if they're healthy, to get it done. So now the coach has to get it done. There's no excuse anymore.
Wow.
So
get what done? Get out of the first round?
I agree with part of what you said, Bobby. Like, Brad's under the hot seat because
there's no excuses anymore.
But the Fournier is not the reason. Getting Fournier and giving him the pieces is not the reason why. It's still a pretty flawed team, even with a small addition at the deadline. Fournier is not a savior. Fournier is an upgrade.
He's a significant upgrade.
Sure, but he's a Band-Aid.
He's a Band-Aid. You traded away your starting center, and you're left with Rob and Tristan's out for who knows how long. You lost a little bit in that deal. You lost some in that transaction too. So you did. You went backwards. You went from Tice to Wagner minutes, Tice to Kornet minutes now.
And that's the frustrating thing. They made a move to change the style of the team, and you're still doing the same thing, leaning on Wagner minutes to fill the Tice role. Tice is gone. He's not here. You can't run the Tice offense with Wagner. They tried to throw an alley-oop to Wagner tonight.
Bobby, welcome to the resistance.
It was so
welcome
bad.
to the resistance, Bobby.
Yo, Wagner looked at that like, are you serious?
Tonight was the worst.
Welcome to the dark side, Bobby.
He
You can't
made
go
it.
back.
Yeah,
You
no,
know who
tonight
I-
really was the worst Stevens night of the season.
They missed
Well,
Ron,
Bobby,
man.
we're just glad you got off the island and came to mainland. Welcome to the mainland.
Good
I'm
lord.
mad we missed,
There's a middle ground, yeah.
you know, this game would have been a lot
Bobby
more.
is on the mainland, folks.
He did it.
He has left Fantasy Island. Welcome to the mainland.
Yeah, that's because he knows
Yes.
he's not
But
big
the
on
thing is, if Bobby's on this team, we're
Not big on
screwed
Rob.
for the rest of the
Yeah,
year.
we got nothing to talk about now.
We got nothing to talk about if Bobby starts agreeing with us.
Hey, sir, it's just one thing.
We're doomed. All right, we've gone on long enough. We've got another one on Friday. We got another one on Easter Sunday.
Wow.
Bobby's going to be at the game on Friday, so he'll be reporting with a mask. Josue, I think you're off, my man.
I am. I'm out of town. Going to a wedding.
Yep. So, but we will be back here on Friday. Final thoughts, guys. Once around the horn, if you want to go, Sherrod.
Oh God.
It's like,
This season can't get over soon enough. I'm as much as I want them to close this thing out, I'm really interested to see what the hell they're going to do in the offseason. Because I think this is going to be one of those franchise-defining off seasons where they're either going to take a unexpected quantum leap forward, or we're going to go back to the Doc Rivers before KG arrived, Dark Ages, sooner than you think.
Ooh.
Yeah, I said it. Yeah.
Wow.
Hey,
That was
could
dark.
be in the forecast for sure.
Yikes.
Yeah. I'm looking for Brad to do something similar to what he did, or what he said at least, and show it. You know, how upset are you? Are you going to penalize these guys if they don't come out with the energy that you like? I mean, unfortunately, it is, what is it, the Rockets? So I mean, the Hornets going to be a really good matchup. I'm really excited about that. And then you got the Philadelphia Sixers. Listen, you got Philly coming into Boston. Like, this 7-game homestand, it's got its ups and downs, and obviously Luka is a really tough spot to be in. But these next 2 games, I mean, you can build up some momentum and give Philly your best shot. But again, if Brad's not cracking that whip, if these guys aren't feeling the pressure, if the All-Stars ain't feeling it, and you'll get the indication in that first, second quarter of where this team stands for sure. That's exactly. Brad needs to get that out. He needs to get that out when and use it appropriately. Okay, call these guys out.
Just do one of those Herb Brooks things after, and just let the fans stay in the Garden, get everybody back out onto the court, and just have them run suicides.
Running sprints, yeah.
Seriously, and I guarantee you, Payton Pritchard will be leading the pack. He's been the rookie wall. He's over it now. I'm seeing a different player.
Good game from him tonight. Yep.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who got freed by the Jeff Teague minutes that were in front of him, unfortunately, in that trade there. So yeah. So that's a positive we've seen in the last week or so. They definitely got to destroy the Rockets.
He's heading back to the Fantasy Island, folks. He's in the mainland.
He's on that.
He's heading back.
One person.
They got to destroy the Rockets on Friday. That Sunday one's the big one.
Sunday's going to end their season.
All season they've missed Hayward so much, and he's been vindicated by that move to Charlotte, where they've been awesome to watch. I mean, you hate watching the Celtics this year. You got to get League Pass, one team, get the Hornets so you can watch every game they play because they're so much fun.
They are really fun to watch. You're right,
Malik Monk.
Yeah.
I like him.
So don't get embarrassed by them. I mean, do not let Hayward come into the Garden and drop 40 on your head. That would be the worst thing ever.
No, the worst thing is Terry Rozier to come in and drop 40.
It could be 30 each, yeah.
Rozier's going to score.
He's the one who wants to.
At least 40. That's going to be the nail in the coffin game.
He's going to take at least 40 shots for sure.
It's going to make it's going to be the most demoralizing game of the year with those guys lighting you up.
You know someone's going to wear a Scary Terry shirt. So he's just.
I am. For the broadcast. I'm wearing a Gordon Hayward's Hornet jersey for the broadcast.
Get the authentic one with the throwback one. I like those.
My final word is
I'm going to the cheese shop. Yep.
If you're the Celtics, don't do what you guys are doing. Don't look ahead to Sunday, and don't think about this game. Forget about this game. Focus on Friday. You can use Friday as a glorified practice. You guys don't get a lot of practices. The way that the Rockets are built right now, I mean, this should be a game that they blow them out. They should be able to work on some things. Brad should be able to get creative with some lineups up there. I want to see weird stuff going on out there with lineups and rotations. Use this game, get the job done. Use this game to get more comfortable, get Fournier more acclimated into what's going on, and then focus on Sunday, which is, like you guys have already said, it's going to be, probably one of the most interesting games of the whole season. So,
find a way to win.
Don't skip ahead. Yeah,
Find a way to
absolutely.
win.
This is I mean, if you lose Friday, Sunday doesn't even matter because this team is just dead men walking.
Well, plus the 6 o'clock start, so that works in the Celtics' favor because we know their history with the matinees.
Those matinee games, yeah.
All right. My final thought. I didn't talk about Rob tonight, and I wasn't really allowed to talk about Neesmith, and I want to say that I deserve some credit for that. Okay.
And you didn't talk about Romeo.
And I didn't talk about Romeo. I left him, and I still was able to muster plenty of rage. Okay.
You got an update. I'm surprised you didn't bring it up.
So we might get Romeo Friday, though. Is that
no
true?
Romeo?
No, he's not come back for a long time.
What?
Romeo had
that's
the
right.
Injury designation of all, which was basically like he's too fat to play right now. You know, like that's.
He's too fake. He's not real.
No, he fell out of shape. We might find out.
It's a little bit of that, but I also
don't
think
that he's here. But I mean, he was out for a long time, so he might have gotten hit hard. He's
for sure, and I think the team feels a little. The team doesn't like Jayson Tatum going on and saying, "Oh, like this affected me, and I'm not feeling good about this." So they're gonna rush back Tristan and Romeo when they don't really need either of them right now. They're gonna take all the time they need on that.
Yeah, it would be whatever. I don't want to get into it. My final thought, like I said, I didn't harp on those guys. I'll leave it with a positive note. We mentioned Moe Wagner. As a media member, the first time I got to cover a Red Sox game was that 1998 home opener against the Mariners where Vaughn hit the walk-off grand slam. That was my first time on the field at Fenway. And at that point, again, transform yourself to 1998 Red Sox. That's before it all kind of started, okay? You're in Pedro's zone. You start to get legitimate. You're knocking at the door with the Yankees. That was the height of awesomeness. It was, where is Roger? Yankees, Red Sox, blah, blah, blah. Heading into 2003, 2004, I was so starstruck. I literally was grabbing clumps of grass and stuffing them in my pocket. I was like, in case I never got to go back there.
I've done that.
I remember Steve Buckley was with me and he was like, dude, chill. He was
chill.
He's like, act like you've been there. And I was like, he was literally he was going
Buck is a nice guy. Yeah, he's a good dude.
Dude, I actually remember that game.
He could have been mean to you there, but Buck's a good dude.
No, I mean we worked together, but he was, and he was like that.
I was no
cheering in the press box. I was like, "This is amazing." He's like, "Shut up," I was like, but I was like,
yeah.
No, it's a home game.
I remember that game. I actually missed the grand. So my parents used to always take us out of school on Red Sox opening day because it was a day game. We didn't go to the game, but we would just half day and kind of make a good day out of it. And I remember just thinking the Sox were going to lose, and I went for a bike ride, and I came back, and my mom was yelling out the door, move on, the Red Sox just won. I'm like, what? I sprinted. I was kind of pissed about missing it, but I mean that's an unreal game, John. That's quite the first game to go to.
That's such a little. I can just picture little Jimmy doing that. I missed it, getting so
just
mad.
Throw the bike on the ground, sprint in.
Oh
man! Why did you tell me to go for a bike ride?
Yeah, there's no social media. You can't post it and glow. He's like, I missed it.
Hey, you guys want to play some stickball?
Is it opening day tomorrow?
Yeah.
Opening day tomorrow, yeah.
Is it Fenway or is it somewhere else? Somewhere else, right?
No,
it's
Fenway.
No joke. This is what a sad loser I am. I was that man child. I was still wearing jerseys on opening day because it used to be such a religious experience.
Oh man, I know.
I have my Dwight Evans jersey. My number 24 Dwight Evans jersey, which then became
during the day too. Yep.
Kevin Mitchell, Mike Stanley, eventually Manny Ramirez, and then David Price, and then I had to burn it. Home run. That's what they've done with my number 24.
Good tradition, though. Take your kid out of school on opening day. Are kids even in school right now, or are they just all schooling from home? You probably can't even do it.
No, they're there. Reduced attendance.
Now you just put school on one side and the game on the other. On
dual screens.
Yeah, so that's what we got tomorrow. We're back on Friday again. Sherrod Blakely, Bleacher Report. He's got something out right now. Make sure you read it. Also, Boston Sports Journal. He'll be writing a Sunday column on the Celtics as well. And Sherrod, I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire on what that's going to entail. There's still a lot of time left in the week.
There's a lot of time left.
I have a feeling it'll be something to do with Charlotte, though.
Yeah.
I guess.
Rose.
See ya. Josue Pavon, heavy.com, CLNS Media, Bobby Manning for CLNS Media, Boston Sports Journal, Celtics blog, Jimmy Toscano, again, Jimmy John podcast in development, Bobby Manning, Dome Theory, Josue Pavon, Causeway Street, and Sherrod Blakely with the A-List podcast. Just talked to a writer from Orlando talking about Evan Fournier, had some things to say about him that Celtics fans might find interesting. So that's what they call... In the business, that's what they call a tease. So go subscribe to the podcast, listen to it.
Subscribe.
Yeah, it'll give you a little bit of insight into Fournier, who we're now starting to see a little bit more of. And
we also got into a little bit of Aaron Gordon as well, and just got a little 4-on-1 on that.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So there's some stuff on Gordon there too, and it's interesting. So you should definitely listen to this episode, subscribe to the podcast going forward, because it's always great, and Sherrod always gets great guests. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channels if you haven't already. You'll be notified when we go live after every game and breaking news stories. And again, I keep teasing it, but very soon the Garden Report is going to daily. Yes, it is happening. And I think we can muster enough anger and interest for the last 25 games to make this happen. So thanks again for
some silver linings.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.